Terraria is a 2D sandbox game with the occasional 2.5D weapon effect replaceable, with gameplay that revolves around exploration, building, crafting, combat, survival, and mining, meaning the only two planes are vertical and horizontal, left, right, up and down. Walking is one of the most fundamental controls of Terraria, with one key assigned to moving left and another to moving right, that being A and D. Traversing across Terraria's landscape and caverns just require one plane of this two-dimensional game, the other plane being taken up by double jumps in pre-hard mode and flight in hard mode. Debuffs are temporary, negative status effects as opposed to buffs which affect the player positively. Once a debuff has been inflicted, the debuff's icon will display in the upper left of the player's window, along with an icon and countdown timer showing how much longer the debuff will be in effect. But how do you make a debuff for a solely vertical and horizontal game to make the controls as hard as possible with such limited movement without making it overly unfair? You invert it, of course. The simple concept of having to reverse your inputs for 7 seconds, 14 on expert mode and 18 on master, before having to switch back to normal makes the debuff incredibly confusing the first time you get hit with it. But once you understand what it does, it isn't too difficult to mirror your inputs to successfully dodge attacks. Confusion was added in the 1.1 update for Terraria 7 months after the initial release of the game. It later saw more versions such as the console release and the mobile release. The Brain of Cthulhu is the one and only boss that can actually inflict the confusion debuff onto you. Technically, it's normally the creepers that inflict the debuff, as when hitting a player in expert mode or master mode, a creeper always inflicts one of 9 debuffs, with one being the confused debuff. But the Brain also has a much smaller chance, a 0.82% chance to be exact, to inflict the debuff on hit. There are also hard mode enemies that inflict the confusion debuff, the main 3 being the giant bat, the clown during a hard mode blood moon, and the light mummy in a hollowed underground desert. Each of them has a 1 in 14 chance to inflict the debuff on hit, with all of the durations being 5 seconds on normal mode and 10 seconds on expert. This makes the cavern layer decently dangerous early hard mode, the underground desert moderately dangerous if it is hollowed, and the blood moon extremely dangerous. The one caveat being that the clown is a semi-rare enemy and only appears once or twice every blood moon. Confusion can also be inflicted by players, whether it be from accessories or weapons, and it can be used for a competitive edge in PvP scenarios such as speedrunner vs speedrunner challenges, or it could be used in PvE scenarios such as making mob farms or just helping out with survivability. The Brain of Confusion is the only accessory in the game that allows the player to inflict confusion with no specific weapon, as once you are hit there is a 60% chance for the nearby enemies to get the debuff for a minimum of 1.5 seconds, which scales with the amount of damage you take. There are also confusion weapons such as the Beekeeper dropped by the Queen Bee, and nano bullets later in hard mode which can be used with any ranged weapon. In conclusion, the confusion debuff is an amazing concept and is amazingly implemented in this style of game. That's enough confusion for today. Subscribe.